Yes, I know what you're thinking, not another video on driving techniques, but stay with me because I promise this one's worth watching. So listen, although there are 1,000 other great videos out there on how to drive a fast lap in a go-kart, and basically none of the information I'm going to hit you with today is anything really new, I am going to show you my way of looking at the key elements of driving by rethinking how to approach cornering, braking, and riding the go-kart? Yeah. So this is part one of a 3-part video series I'm going to do where I'm going to kind of reframe this stuff so it's simpler to apply and remember, and it'll hopefully get you on the pace much sooner, especially at those new tracks that you're unfamiliar with. Essentially, what this video series is really all about is to help you develop consistency, because once you build up some pace, consistency is actually the thing that'll win you the races. Now, racing line theory is one of the most basic fundamental aspects of driving for beginners to learn. The purpose of this video isn't to tell you which way is wrong or right, but more to talk about racing lines in general in the context of finding the ideal line to put a consistent lap together. It's really to highlight that there isn't just one correct way around the corner. Many driver coaches I see, they'll just say, you know, take the corner this way because I said so. But there's a lot of circumstances to take into account. It depends on things like, if you're on a flying lap or not. Are you just controlling the pace in the middle of the pack? Are you attacking? Are you defending? What are the grip levels like? There's a heap of things you need to think about before just deciding on one line around a corner. And how are you going to find the right line when your coach isn't around? Or if you're like most people in this grossly overpriced sport, you can't afford to drive a coach with all the other costs of racing. Well, don't panic, I got you. This video will give you some tools to figure it out for yourself when you haven't got old mate there to tell you how to take a corner. So with this video being about racing lines, the first thing we need to do is just kind of understand the main types of corners, just so we're all on the same page with our terminology here. So we've got hairpins, open corners, sweepers, chicanes, 90 degrees, and complex corners. There might be more, I don't know, there's probably more, but that's the basics. So a hairpin is essentially any low speed corner that is from around about 180 degrees to 135-ish degrees, such as turn 17 in Miami, you've got La Source at Spa, Hockenheim's Spitzkau, the famous Adelaide hairpin, or maybe Montreal's Pitts hairpin. One of the first and most insane hairpins I remember seeing as a kid was just near my hometown of Launceston, Tasmania at Symmons Plains Raceway, the Brambles hairpin. An open corner is generally just a fast, often flat-out kink. They're often called kinks. There's a million examples of these that are largely unnoticed because they're kind of featureless, and for this reason, we won't be wasting any time on them here. So the sweeper is a type of open turn, but the sweeper for me is a long, fast corner that often might only need a slight lift off the throttle to get through, if any lift at all. Think of Pouan at Spa or Monza's Parabolica. Keep in mind, a sweeper may be a 180 degree corner. It doesn't make it a hairpin though, because a sweeper, remember, it's longer and faster. Another good one's actually turn 1 at Suzuka. It is pretty much a 180 degree turn, but it's not a hairpin. It's a long sort of double apex sweeper. A chicane is basically a closely spaced left-right or right-left zigzag. Again, you see them everywhere, and drivers are often seen just straight lining them and shotgunning straight through the middle and jumping over the curbs. A 90 is what I call any corner that is basically just your standard medium turn. So basically anything around 90 degrees, bread and butter stuff. A complex corner is pretty much any turn that is tied to another. They connect directly from one immediately into the next, and there can be a sequence of 2, 3, 4 or more turns. And obviously we see these corners with lots of different variations and radiuses. Radii? I see some people like to categorize corners as single apex, double apex, hairpin, variable radius, and chicane. That's great, that's fine. So knowing all that stuff's cool and all, but it's really not what picking a racing line is all about. You see, at the end of the day, all you really need to think about with cornering and types of corners is either their high speed, medium speed, or low speed. That's it. Change my mind. So rightio, now is the bit where I share my little method that will maybe give you a new insight or perspective on how to approach putting together a fast, consistent and smooth lap. I think in all my years as a racing enthusiast, amateur racing driver, you know, just a motorsport fan, I've only ever seen driving coaches explain racing lines in the same exact way. You might see this type of thing. They'll draw a thin line through the corner from the outside, curving into the apex and then flowing back out to the exit. Now, this is always a theoretical geometric line. Maybe you'll be taught a late turn-in option or an early turn-in. None of it's wrong. It's just that there's so many variables that will determine which line to actually drive. So as I said before, maybe you're defending with another driver right up your chuff. Maybe you're trying to set up an overtake. What's happening just before or after the corner? A straight? Another corner? Maybe there's a tricky camber or undulations to factor in. Are you defending? Are you attacking? So already you're starting to realise that just deciding on one racing line and sticking to that every time, no matter what, is a bit of a dumb move. So instead of confusing yourself with which one of these different 3 racing lines is the correct one, I'm going to share with you the ribbon effect, which is something I just made up. It's just a little hack you can use to read a racetrack.
Oh, I get it.
To explain this, we're going to need to tickle the old whiteboard for a little bit of theory, mainly because I can't be bothered getting like a graphics person to make a nice slick looking animation. I did try ChatGPT. The results were, I guess on the plus side, I'm probably the first person to have a racetrack with a cul-de-sac. The new challenge for drivers there, what's the fastest way through a dead end? So let's take this hairpin for example. You might see this type of thing, a geometric line through the turn. But what if we want to try a late turn in? Well, the latest I would probably want to turn in for any situation is about here. This will be the limit of my late in, early out line. Now, let's try an early turn in, early apex line. Now, because of the higher mid-corner speed, I'll have to wait a little bit longer before getting back on the power. So this is the other extreme limit of the early in, late out line. So you see here the 2 extremes coming into the apex zone or pinch point where the lines converge or cross over, and then they run out to the outer exit. Now, if we shade that area in, well, that's our ribbon. If you draw a line right in the middle, it should give you that theoretical or constant radius line. All right, so looking at this amazingly professional scribble, I should be actually standing next to the whiteboard for this shit. So yeah, totally pro level productions here. But you can see here that this is a way to think about the racing line as more of a bandwidth or spectrum that you can place the card in and just find the most efficient way to flow through the turns. We're all a little bit on the spectrum anyway, aren't we? The beauty of this approach is you just apply the same idea to all corners. Here's a 90, same. A sweeper, same. A hairpin with a decreasing radius, boom. Somewhere within this ribbon zone is basically all the driving area you're ever going to need for most situations. Be it a quali lap, controlling the pace, attacking, defending, most situations, this is where you're going to be driving. For dry conditions only. Wet conditions, totally different story. That's a whole nother video. So all right, some sweepers, you've got some chicanes and definitely complex corners can get a little bit more technical, but yeah, look, essentially you can use this ribbon technique for 95% of situations. So for chicanes, there is a general technique you can apply. Look, some chicanes are just flat out open, straight through the middle. Curb hops, you don't really need to slow down for them if they're fairly openly spaced. But, you know, if anything's got sort of more radius, there's more overlap with the apexes, or anything a bit weird like that, remember these key tips. One turn will need to be compromised to benefit the other. If both turns are the same radius, find which part of the track before or after the chicane is the most critical or has the longest straight. If it's the approach to the chicane, prioritise the speed in the first turn. If the most lap time can be gained after the chicane, make sure you get a good fast run out of the second turn. Then, thirdly, if the two turns are a different radius, try to prioritise the speed in the most open of the two. I can't give any generalised sort of tips on complexes or complex corners because they're all totally different, other than to identify the most critical corner in the sequence and prioritise the speed in that one. Now, variable radius turns are simple in theory. If it tightens up on the exit, apex later. If it opens out on the exit, you can afford to apex a little bit earlier because you've got more room to release the kart and carry heaps of speed on your way out. A sweeper often tends to be a double apex, so driving that sort of geometrical, theoretical line through there with a constant radius often allows you to flow more speed through those longer, faster corners, almost treating these corners like you're driving a single, like, imaginary apex. Just try and keep your revs and therefore your speed as high as your tyres will allow. There are exceptions, of course, depending on the track layout, but that's a good start. So this ribbon approach should also get you more into a mindset of thinking more about the whole lap, because with each line you choose through each corner, you're forced to consider the next corner. And then you're on your way to thinking about more than just single corner speed, but maximum overall lap speed. Moles, people. Make sure you check your moles. So which line should I choose? Well, as a general rule of thumb, we can say that for low speed turns, a late exit is best. For medium speed turns, you can apex a little earlier and slightly smooth out your entry radius. Then for the high speed corners, you can often take that wider radius and smush that accelerator pedal and power all the way through. Also, side note, things like track camber and undulations, you probably should think about those things too. They can play a part in the line you choose around a corner. For instance, if you've got a long, fast sweeper, but it's off camber, so you're going around and the track sort of drops away on the outside of the track, you have to be careful with the line you choose not to go out too wide, because if you drop a wheel off in the dirty stuff, you're going to start to lose grip and slide off the track. Basically, that gravity's just going to drag you straight off on the outside and you'll be off in the dirt. Likewise with undulations, I think if there's a hairpin at a local track here, it dips down into the braking area. It's quite a sharp corner, so you do have to brake maybe a little bit earlier or a little bit harder than you would if it was flat. So if it's a flat, you probably wouldn't need to brake as much, but that gravity's working there. So again, it does affect sometimes the line you choose through a corner. What you don't want to do is turn in too late, because like this guy, he's basically having to stop the kart to get it rotated to the apex here, bogging the engine and losing bulk momentum. But if you're like this guy here, who's done the old rookie line, turning in way too early and too fast, and he's run out of track before the exit like a dickhead. That'll be like massive understeer, or they'll have jumped on the brakes mid-corner to try and slow down with a bunch of steering lock on and probably spun off and gone off into the grass. Don't be that guy. If you can think of cornering as a constant trade-off between entry and exit speed, you're on the right track.
No pun intended.
And if you can be at full throttle at the apex you're driving and that doesn't force the kart right out to the track edge on your exit, then you should theoretically be able to apex a little bit faster or take that corner a little bit faster and earlier. In other words, you should only apex as early as you're able to before the kart starts to understeer off the track on the way out. If that happens, reduce your speed a bit and just apex slightly later. All right, so here's my special down visor racetrack. Down visor speedway, raceway. I don't know, we need a name for this track. Maybe you guys can think of a name for our down visor track and put it in the comments, and the best one, I'll pick the best one and they'll be the winner. and you get to win nothing. You get to win nothing. This track has a pretty good mix of straights. It's got sweepers, a kink, a couple of low-speed kind of hairpins there, chicanes, and this little complex feature here. So for now, let's just assume we're planning for our baseline lap that you're going to try for your moles. Yeah, remember your moles from before? Okay, so there will generally be one optimal line for a track, but depending on tyres, power and grip, and the weight category you're in, that line is going to change a little bit. For instance, when we see other types of racing, like mixed historic touring cars, where some of them have heaps of power but not a lot of grip, others lack the ponies, but they're lighter, they're smaller, and they have a lot more grip. So this gives the lighter cars more corner speed potential, but they aren't able to reach the top speeds down the straights that the muscle cars can. And for this reason, you'll often notice these different types of cars taking different lines through the corners in order to exploit their different strengths and handling characteristics. So translating that to go-karting, unless it's like KZ or some other high-powered category, most of our amateur level karts are fairly low power, medium grip, so you always have to keep that in mind when picking your racing lines. Okay folks, so here's our down advisor racetrack. As you can see, I've gone over the track already with all of my extremes of late turn-in, late apex in green, and then my other extreme in red with the early entry, early turn-in and early apexing all around the track, so you can see the two extremes that I'm kind of working within. And then I've gone and shaded it in, the ribbon. But before I pick my racing line out for the lap, I need to study the whole track layout first using this ribbon technique. So this is also where the moles thing comes in. I see almost all drivers, they get so tunnel visioned with just going as fast as possible through each and every corner. Fools. Zoom out a bit. Because although this might be the fastest way through this corner, it's not necessarily the racing line. They are not the same thing. And this is because a racetrack isn't just one corner. It's a whole bunch of them, all connected by straights. So going through that one corner as fast as humanly possible might be great for that corner, but it might ruin you for the next corner, and you're going to end up losing more time. All right, so this next bit here, we'll go over the lap. I'm just going to kind of wing it here. I'm going ad lib, I'm going rogue, I'm going off script here, so I know you'll be cool with it because you're cool. Karting people are cool. So we've got turn one here. We're coming down the straight. There's our checkered flag and our start-finish line. And we're coming into turn one. Now we've got basically like a double apex sweeper here. I'll use my screwdriver. Our late turn in is going to be maybe coming out here and maybe taking the apex on this second curb or apex here. Coming across and then staying to what'll be the right-hand side of the track coming into this next chicane. So again, we're choosing our line through here almost purely based off what's coming up next. I'm not thinking necessarily just about this corner and being fast through here. I'm thinking about what's next, what's coming up. So alternatively, we can take our red line and we'll go in here, we'll turn in a bit earlier, we'll hit that first apex and maybe bump off the second one, and then we'll come out nice and wide with a fast exit, just, pretty much flat to the floor, all the way out. Now that's great, that might be really fast through there, but then as we approach this next chicane, we've got to kind of get back over a little bit, and we're going to be compromised coming in a bit early here, maybe going in a little bit shallow, and then we're going to get sort of bogged down a bit halfway through these two corners. So then it's going to compromise our speed getting out of here. Alternatively, the green line stays out to the right-hand side, traveling this way. If you're facing that way, you come in a little bit later here with our green line and coming out a little bit later here. So this way we can pump the throttle a bit earlier, get out of there faster to get a big run up into this hairpin. Maybe that might be more beneficial to go with the red line because we have a decreasing radius corner here. So you've got a bit more room to run out a bit wider where this red line is. As long as you can maintain lots of speed, because what we have next is a bit of a straight here. So if we come in a bit later, we can actually get on the gas kind of here, on the green line, with our late apex. That means we're probably going to have a bit more speed by the time we come down to the braking area for this hairpin. So again, it's up to you. You do you. Choose what you want. But these are your options, and it's just getting you thinking about the whole lap. You're not just thinking about what's the best way through this corner, and then what's the best way through this chicane, and then what's the best way through this hairpin. You're thinking about how they all connect. And that's where consistency will come from, because you're not just isolating each corner and seeing the whole racetrack as, you know, just a whole bunch of heap of different corners that you're trying to get perfect. You're actually thinking more holistically, and you're thinking, right, okay, I have to do this corner this way because the next bit's coming up and that goes like that. And so you're thinking more about a whole lap. It's going to force you to look ahead to the next part of the track. And you're going to be able to hit those braking points, you're going to be able to hit your apexes and maintain a consistent racing line, because the next bit you're going to come up to depends on the bit you're doing right now. So this hopefully will snap people out of this kind of tunnel visioned approach to just trying to nail each corner, because as we've said many times already, you know, nailing one corner, great, sweet, but it might absolutely stuff you for this next one and you'll be slow as old bags through there. So coming up to this next hairpin, the line I take through here is completely going to depend on how I can get the most speed through this whole complex here. So this is a big complex corner here. There's a whole series of them. And let's say if I choose the green line through here, I'm basically going to have to, you see where the sharper turns are? So we've got a bit more of a turn there with our green line. So that's going to be the slow part just there for our green line. Then we'll be fairly quick. We'll have a little bit of it, maybe a little lift here. And then all the way around there's going to be a pretty consistently fast arc until we get to here, where we're going to have to shed a bit more speed and slow down a bit to make it around here. Then we're kind of pretty much from here, we're going to be on the gas all the way up to here. Maybe it's a big corner, we might not even have to brake too much to get around here. And then what I've done with the green line here is I've gone in quite late, and as you can see, a very late apex there. But what that's done is that's given me basically another straight all the way out, and then I've got to have another slow point just here, where I can turn in again, get on the gas early here, and then I can sort of just feed the power back on all the way down the straight. I'm going to be fast down the end of the straight with that line, so the compromise there is the faster I am here, maybe the earlier I have to brake. So with the green line, my slow points here, here, maybe there a little bit, and here. So I've got like 3 or 4 slow points, and I just have to be able to look at the track layout and say, okay, if I pick the green line, I've got more time on the gas between those few slow points. If I pick the red line, I'm going to be going in here faster, and I'll probably be able to actually carry quite a bit of speed. But as soon as I hit here, I'm going to need to get back over this side of the track a bit, or at least to mid-track, to take in this next right-hander for this first corner in this complex series of corners. But I've only got one slow point just here really to start with. Then I'm kind of shotgunning straight line all the way through there. So that's going to be faster. The red line's going to be faster through there than the green line. But then I'm going to pause again here, perhaps maybe having to interrupt my speed through this whole area here, just so I can get the kart rotated all the way around. And then I don't have as long a straight. I haven't made a big straight for myself on this red part here. I've had to sort of start to slow down a little bit maybe, and then I'm going to be, again, kind of trying to get the kart back around. So I've got to get back over to this side and work our way around. I can have a big arc around that corner, but again, I'm crammed on the exit, and then I'm kind of tight all the way through here. Now, if you can go flat out through there, maybe cadets or something, the kids categories, if you can go flat out through there on that really, really tight line through there and apex without running off the track on the exit, sweet, that'd be great. But high power karts, high speed, if you maybe got crappy old tires on there and you haven't got a lot of grip, that might not be the best option. But again, it's going to force me as a driver, I'm sitting in the kart, as I'm taking whatever line I'm taking, I might want to go for something halfway sort of between. And I'm also might be shifting between the red and the green line depending on what the corners are. So again, I'm now forced as I'm driving, because I'm driving a flowing shape, I suppose, I'm I'm lifting my eyes up and I'm forced to look ahead a bit further down the road. And that's a big problem I had when I was starting. I wasn't looking ahead far enough. I'd just be looking straight at my apex. And as I'm at the apex, I'm looking at the exit, which is, it's not far enough ahead. So it causes mistakes. You're braking too late, you're not focused. It's hard to sit back and relax because when you're relaxed, you're fast. If you're tense and uptight, that's when you start to make mistakes because there's too much going on for you to process. If you're thinking ahead, you're prepared, you're mentally prepared because you've got a little bit longer to think about that next bit. So I'm looking at that, I'm like, all right, well, my slow points on the red line are kind of here. It's a bit wiggly wobbly through there, might be a bit windy. Might not be as fast as the green line. I pretty much created for myself with the green line a bit of a straight here, slow down one corner there, and then another little straight, and then a big corner here, and then another big straight, and then another corner here. The red line is a little bit, there's a lot more turns involved, but it's gonna probably be much faster through this part. And I'll have a good flow around there because it's a wide arc through, especially through this exit, but then I'm gonna have to be like slowing right down here to get around this bit. So that's my theory for now. I'll go out and try this at practice, and then I'll try the green line. So you choose the line that you think is gonna be fastest, give it a go. If it sucks, try the other one. If that sucks, try something in between. You just gotta keep practicing. So there it is in all its glory. It's nothing, like I said at the start of the video, this is nothing groundbreaking. It's just a little hack that I like to use to help me think more about the whole lap. It's also good to help me remember a new track that I haven't been to. And it sort of highlights for me where the most flowing part of the racing line is. So once you've decided on the first version of the lap you want to try, get out and start practicing. Record your lap times and keep experimenting. Your version of this will probably look a little bit different to mine depending on what class you're running. And remember, this isn't my final result, this is just an example to show you how it works. The key here is to experiment on your practice days. I can't give you some magic bullet, special silver unicorn cheat code on how to beat everyone else because every track's different and every kart's different and every driver's different. So you're gonna have to try some things out for yourself. Much of finding that optimal lap time is all about is sort of discovering which parts of the track you can sacrifice a bit of speed to gain a bit more somewhere else. So, you know, like you might sacrifice 2/10 in this part of the track to gain 3/10 down the road a bit. So that's a net gain of 1/10. If you've got a couple of spots like that around the track, then you're up 3 or 4 tenths a lap. Now, that could be the difference between qualifying on pole and being in 7th, just a few tenths. That's it, that's all it is. That's how small the margins are sometimes. Momentum is also extremely important to remember in go-karting due to the relatively low power. Two-stroke engines, look, they love to rev, but they bog down from low speeds. The four-strokes do lack overall power in general, but they tend to have a bit more torque down low in the low revs. This is going to have a huge influence on the racing line you choose. Ultimately, the physics that all race cars are dealing with are pretty much all the same. It is the balancing of grip versus speed carried versus distance covered. And, you know, which one of those elements that you're going to sacrifice or prioritize in order to get you through that part of the circuit in the shortest time possible. That's pretty much all it's about. Oh, one last little nugget. Check it out. That's actually the lap we're driving. It seems less complicated now, doesn't it? It's now just a single flowing shape to follow with 3 braking points. Memorize this and enjoy being consistent. Stay tuned, because these braking bits here, this is what we're actually looking at in the next video. Okay, so thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. If you're sitting there wondering, who is this weird little bald guy? You know, why should I listen to this club day hack? Well, I have won my share of trophies for the amount of time I've been racing, and although I don't do much racing these days because of family and work commitments, I have spent my entire life fascinated and obsessed with all things motorsport, driving technique, racecraft. But if there's something I missed or if you think I'm talking out of my ass, just chuck it in the comments. Just get typing. be a keyboard warrior, I don't care. I'll leave it all in there. You can tell me that I'm talking shit and I don't know what I'm talking about. Great, that's fine. My whole aim here is just to get people that are new to the sport up to speed with the basic concepts, and also help people that don't have a heap of money and resources to throw into this sport. I know families that spend 70, 80 grand a year. It's very hard to compete with that. So yeah, you need every bit of help you can get. Hit subscribe and like the video if you found it useful. I'd love to line up some awesome guests and bigger and better content for you, but I need to grow this channel a bit more first and make it worth my while, and that's up to you sitting there. Catch ya.